some water oil. It's 5:30. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It is with great pleasure that we get to introduce to you our new city manager, Brandon Dross. Welcome, Brandon. We're very happy that
you're here. Thank everybody for that. Thank you, Commission, for putting your faith in me. Thank you, residents, for all the support the past few days. I'm looking forward to being pretty aggressive. I know it's been a while since we've had somebody in place. I'm looking forward to serve each and every one of you. I have an open door, so if anybody needs to reach out to me, my door is open. So please take advantage of that. And thank you once again, Commission, for getting me on board.
There you go. Welcome, welcome. All right. We'll consider the minutes of the regular meeting September 1st, 2020, and the special meeting September 1st, 2020.
I make mention we consider the minutes of September 1st, 2020, and special meeting September 1st, 2020.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Marcus?
All right. Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Mr. Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Aye. Megan, do we have anything on the public forum? Nothing there? Okay. Any additions or corrections to the agenda? Sorry.
No, it's included on.
Okay. No additions or corrections to the agenda. I'll move to approve the agenda as printed.
Second it.
Any discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Aye. Update on the city update on COVID-19. I did look this afternoon to see if the county had released any additional information. And since August 13th, I've not seen any other recommendations by the county. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay. Update on the water treatment plant from Buck Driggs.
Good evening, Buck Driggs, the Driggs Design Group. Couple things here now. I'll start out by giving you an update, and then if there's a change order item on our West Tech unit we'll talk about. But as far as the project goes, we are out for bids. We've been advertising for a little over 30 days now. 30 days. It was about Friday of last week. That's when our original bid letting was scheduled. We did push it back a week or a couple things. There's still been quite a bit of interest in the project from various contractors. I had some calls late last week from fencing contractors. I had some concrete paving contractors for the last couple of days contact me. So we still have quite a few people that are still looking at the project, trying to get the best numbers in. So I think it's good of us to give them an extra week to do that. Things have been pretty rushed. So I think overall we've probably got 3 or 4 prime bidders. So I think that's really good. We have worked our butts off trying to get it out there to everybody possible to get them to bid it. And I think people seem pretty hungry right now, so that's good. The other thing that was out there that kind of caused the last ripple in things that we wanted to get a better understanding for is there's about 60 barrels of oil and stuff that's been there for a while from the generators and all that kind of stuff that are sitting around. And the environmental folks come through and looked at it. Nobody really knows what's in those barrels for certain. So what we're being told late last week was to test each barrel about $600 a test times 60. So that's about $36,000 just in testing of those chemicals and barrels to figure out what's in there. That doesn't even include disposing of the hazardous waste that would be in there, such as the oil and any other chemicals and so forth. So Mitch and I have been working through some stuff, trying to figure out where the county can dispose of their hazardous chemicals and to see if we can reduce that and get rid of it. I think we're probably gonna pull that out of the demolition of the project and I think it's more cost effective for the city to dispose of that stuff themselves.
Is it, makes you think it's oil?
Yeah, it's all used oil.
There's some oil contractors that will come and test it, take it for you.
Well, Yep, and if you can burn the oil, that's another great way of getting rid of it, but we just didn't have enough time to connect all the dots and we're kind of in another week. We felt the contractors kind of get the better numbers going. And so it fit pretty well. I think most contractors were happy that we gave them an extra week because it was kind of tight the way it was. So I expect us to do the project Friday, 1:30 here in this office. So by then we should have a price and see where we're at with things. And then at that point, we'll review the bids and provide you guys with a recommendation of who you think you should award, which generally would be low bid, unless there's performance issues or something from another contractor or we feel that they're not capable of performing the job that they have. But I don't see that. I think everybody that's been in the prime at least has had conversations with us is plenty capable of doing the project. So the other item that we have before you tonight that we're looking for some direction on is a change order from the West Tech unit. As you may recall, I want to say about a year ago, we were here getting approvals to move forward with the purchase. Since that time, we've done pilot testing, which I was done in May or June, somewhere in there. Kind of figure out a little more details about what we needed, chemical treatment and so forth that was going to be required of the West Tech unit. Throughout that process, there were some concerns about some of the pumps that we have there. There's 2 pumps that, based on the way you guys operate your plant, which is kind of a variable flow, so the plant's generally running all the time. They'd like to upgrade those pumps. That information is in this change order. And then there's 3 other pumps, chemical feed pumps, that they'd also like to change out. That was city staff's recommendation. The LMI pumps that they have, they've not had good luck with them. Sounds like to me everything out at the plant pretty much is Watson Marlow now, and like to keep like consistency amongst all their pumps and stuff. So the change order, total amount for modifying 5 pumps is $20,451.
That would go on top of the remainder of the cost.
That is correct. As you recall, we're about $97,000 under budget on that unit when you got our final number. So we're still $70,000 under what our original budget was. So these upgrades fall within the budget that we had set for the West Tech unit.
Any other questions for Buck?
So if you upgrade the pumps to match whatever you got in there, you'd always have parts on hand and everything.
Correct.
He's saying it's easy to work on.
It'd be, yeah, they're way more familiar with them. They're easier to work on, according to Mitch and his folks, they've lasted longer than the LMI pumps. So, I think this is an upgrade to make the plant better. And makes it easier for your staff to work on it, switch out parts, that kind of thing.
Mitch, are they all the same size or are they different sizes?
They're probably kilo series. They pump a wide range of capacity or they'll probably be all the same. But usually the pump head, there's like tubes in the head, and all that is you change out the motor itself. The control basically is all the same.
Do you have some on hand at times, or you have to?
We have 2 Watson Marlow pumps right now, Kudos 30s that we upgraded.
Yeah, but I mean, do you have an extra pump basically?
Yes, yeah.
And so if we had the money, if you need an extra pump to have on hand.
Basically, when the new plant's here, we'll have 2 spares.
Any other questions for Buck?
Brian, do we need to make a motion to include this cost?
What was the upgrade? How much was it?
$20,451.
I'd make a motion that we approve the change order presented in the amount of $20,451.
Any discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Thank you,
Thanks.
Bob.
We'll be back shortly, hopefully with some bids.
We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, item number 10 is presentation from KMEA on power supply proposal.
Thank you, Commissioners and Mayor. My name is Neil Laney with KMEA, Kansas Municipal Energy Agency. I might take a minute here since Brandon just started and kind of give a little bit of who KMEA is. We're a joint action agency at Overland Park, Kansas, that non-for-profit that helps municipals just like the city of Barrington manage the power supply, give them guidance on their natural gas and energy. So we were here back in July, myself and Darren, who's probably going to be here sitting around and talk about the solar policy. If you guys have any questions about that. And then Paul Melberg, our general manager. And we had discussed kind of the savings that we could provide over your current arrangement with Evergy. And then that was just kind of the precursor, and then we were going to come back and talk about that kind of the nuts and bolts of the agreement of what we're proposing. In June of this past year, we had welcomed 5 of the former Evergy GFR customers, just like Barrington, Generation Formula, Arma, Blue Mound, LaHart, Twinsburg, and Moran all kind of joined us, and they're all realizing that 35 to 40% savings. So they just started in June 1. If we go to the this slide right here, probably about 7 or 8 into it. Kind of starts off with the annual estimated savings, and I apologize, I didn't have all of your 2019 information, so I used your 2018, but I think 2019 will show even greater savings because I think your demand rate actually went up a little bit from 18 to 19. There are a couple different options here. The one, and there's multiple options, but I want to kind of narrow it down to just a couple to think about. But option 1 is if you have an agreement that runs through May 31st of 2022. So if you don't do anything, then you guys could sign agreements if you wanted to in the next couple of months with KMEA. We could lock in pricing today for a 2022 start. That would essentially be locked in for 10 years for the majority of your portfolio. So that is something that we could do today or next week or a month or 2 months from now. Wherever you give us the green light, we can lock in pricing for 80% of your power supply portfolio. Option 2 is you give us the green light to move forward with agreements, and we still lock in prices, but in lieu of that, we also provide a revenue stream to help offset current expenses with your energy agreement. And that's what I kind of put in the packet was option 2. Just to simplify, I didn't put option 1 in there, but just so we're everyone's on terms of what these options are. But there's a myriad of things that we can do. We just want to kind of keep it simple. If you go to the slide that talks about the 3 main components of the energy bill, Brandon, a lot of this is going to be utility talk, so you're going to understand probably what that they're talking about here. But the majority of your costs right now are wrapped up in this demand or capacity charge. So when Marcus gets a bill or Megan gets a bill in the future from Evergy, it'll have a demand or capacity charge. And that's just the ability to produce energy. So that's tied to a nuclear unit, coal unit, whatever unit they've tied to, it's sell off to FERC in DC. And it's part of the GFR, the generation formula rate, and it's a filed stated rate that they can change annually if they want to. But that is the lion's share of your energy bill right now. And then the energy, the actual production of electricity, so that can come from natural gas, wind, solar, whatever the fuel source may be. And then the transmission lines are the physical lines that transmit the electricity from the generators to load, just like the city of Barrington. The transmission charge is going to be the same, irrespective if it's KMEA as your power supplier, Evergy as your power supplier, or you found a marketer in Kansas that could do everything, the transmission costs are gonna be the same respective. So we're really honing in on the demand and the energy portion of your current bill. So if you go to the 2018 cost structure breakdown, you can see that you guys were at $1.7 million in overall power supply expenses when you look at the capacity, demand, and then the Westar energy charge, and then the charges you get from the KMA projects, the federal hydro lock-in stop, and then you have your transmission component. So you can see the lion's share of the 1.7 million is the demand or capacity portion that you all receive from NEP. And I believe that's almost $23,000 a megawatt right now. So if you flip to the next page, so what we're proposing today, and what a lot of the counterparts here in Central Kansas did was they signed on with an agreement again. 80% of your portfolio would be locked down, and we'll get into kind of the nuts and bolts of that in a couple slides. But you can see that with this, we're right around $1 million. So there's about $800,000 worth of $700,000-800,000 worth of savings, and the lion's share of ours is mainly energy. So it took a smaller pie, and then the energy just ticked up a little bit compared to what you're paying now. However, the demand went down from almost $900,000 to about $100,000. So instead of paying $23,000 a megawatt, you would be paying more like $2,000 a megawatt. So it's about a tenth of the price. So we're able to leverage the excess capacity that we have amongst the other municipals in the state of Kansas. So that's how we're able to get that rate affordable. Right now, that's locked down through, I believe, 2025. The capacity market in Kansas and the Southwest Power Pool is the forecast is very soft right now, with all the introduction of solar and wind still in the SPP footprint. So we don't anticipate the group having to up that drastically. But again, even if they did vote to move it to 285, you guys are paying $23 right now. So it would still be a tenth of what you're currently paying. And please stop me if you guys have any questions along the way. So if you go to the next slide, the 2021-2020 power supply relief. So this relates to option 2 in the earlier slide, but essentially the city of Oberlin, which is a little northwest of here, they were in a situation with the cooperative Sunflower Electric, and they have an agreement that I believe starts January 1 of 2022. So what they opted to do was this pre-delivery option, and that's what we're kind of proposing today. They had some pretty high incumbent power supply expenses, so they wanted the ability to offset some of their expenses with revenue streams. So we said, well, we can do that through your power supply agreement, sign agreements, and then we will send you, I think we send them maybe $8,000 a month. And then in exchange for that, when they start taking power from us, they have locked in pricing for 80% of their portfolio. So the exact same thing that we're talking to the city of Harrington about today. But essentially, if you gave us the green light in the next couple of months, we could start a program where we'd send you almost $4,000 a month to help offset some of your current expenses that you have in your energy bills. And that would commence on January 1, 2021, and go through May 31st of 2022, when your current power supply agreement ends. And then once June 1 of 2022 rolls around, the payments stop, but then you have the luxury of experiencing 80% of your portfolio fixed at a very constant, steady rate. And so for budgeting purposes, probably about 35 to 40% less than what you're currently paying right now. And there wouldn't be any major gotchas or anything filed at DC or filed with the state where you were like, wow, I wasn't anticipating that. It'd be just a really steady 2 to 3% increase. Whatever the transmission really, you're kind of at the risk of the transmission at that point, because most of your power is gonna be locked in for a very long time. So,
I got a
yes, sir.
question on the transmission.
Yes.
Because I was on the last contract, and the transmission fees were what got us the step that was using it. Did you say they're always consistent?
They go up. So they, what we're seeing is across the state of Kansas, across the whole region, they're going up to accommodate all the wind farms and to bolster a frankly infrastructure that's probably 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. So they're constantly doing updates, constantly adding infrastructure and constantly rebuilding infrastructure that's already there. So unfortunately, as power supply prices are going like this, with all the introduction of solar and wind at a really affordable rates, transmission is going like this. So you're seeing power supply prices are kind of stabilizing here because of the offset of the two dynamics.
So you negotiate with Westar or Evergy to get our transmission lines, is that how you figured?
No, so the transmission is just a set price. So irrespective of whether or not KMA does it or Evergy does it, every year Evergy and GRDA, all of the big utilities in the region, the state of Kansas, and Southwest Power Pool, they're transmission owners. We're just a transmission customer, and so Evergy, GRDA, all these companies file with FERC for annual, I call it annual transmission revenue requirement. So they file at this certain level, this certain number, say it's $100 million that they think it's going to cost to maintain that system. And then there's a true up every year. So that's going to be a number that you're going to pay. It's based on basically Evergy. They're the ones that kind of decide how much money they need to cover the transmission build out and transmission expenses that year. So you're kind of at the mercy of whatever the incumbent transmission owner.
So that's what hurt us last time we went out on the pool, and then but Evergy set the transmission, so we're going to save us the,
What pool were you guys in?
I don't remember, it's
Okay.
been, well, almost 8 years ago.
Well, sir, they can't, sorry, Neil, they have to charge everybody the same transmission rates now. I don't know what pool you were in, but now it's whatever they're charging one municipal is what they have to charge another municipal.
Okay. 'Cause, I don't know, Brad, if you remember last time,
I'm trying to think too. I don't honestly don't remember.
so that's why we stuck with Evergy or Westar then, because it didn't save us to do anything, because it was gonna hit us with the transmission.
If you have any history on that, we have something.
No.
Because that's considered, that would be considered a discriminatory rate, and that wouldn't be allowed at first now. I don't know about 30 years ago, but now.
Well, this is probably, what, 10 years ago?
I think it's 10.
Was it, Kansas Power? They came and presented to you guys?
There was, we were working with a few, but I don't remember. But we stuck with Westar because it was the cheapest, but.
As of today, I recall a conversation when you were here before that we wanted to compare apples to apples to know what Evergy was going to propose at the same time. And I'm assuming that we haven't reached out to Evergy, like just an assumption that. So
And you said the last time that you got 5 new ones. You had 6 and 1 stuck with that, maybe 5 new guys, whatever, something like that.
There was, a small, very small city, I think maybe 100 meters that elected to stay, but, yeah, 5 and 6. So, yeah, we encourage you guys to talk to Evergy, have them come in. What they did with the other cities was that they, I think they proposed something where they could experience some relief from the current agreement, but in exchange, they wanted, I think, an extra 5 or 10 years commitment. So essentially, lower the cost now, but in exchange,
They lock in.
extend it out. So it's, you're really not saving anything, it's just extending.
I think with Brandon's experience, that it give you an opportunity to evaluate both, what the presentation is here today, the proposal, as well as get familiar with what we have or potential with Evergy. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay,
I guess, looks like it's saving some money.
Definitely digest it and give us a call, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. And if you want to tweak anything, let us know. We're certainly accountable. Wherever we're working.
So if we do the number 2 option, so if, I don't know what we were saying, it's paying 23, but if you pay us 12,000, so it would cheapen us up to start our rate on what we're paying now.
Yeah, so if you have a bill that's, if you look at it, your overall bill might be, I don't know, let's say $120,000. I don't know what an average bill would be. Let's say it's right around that. So you basically take your bill that you pay, and then you have $12,000 a month for 17 months that you could use to offset that. And then once you fully cumulatively retain June 1, 2022, then instead of paying around 7.5 to 8 cents a kilowatt hour, then you're more in the 5 to 5.5 cents ultimately, which is really good.
and we could realize that savings on option 2 if we make a decision before January 2020.
Well, you can almost do it anytime, ma'am, but the reason why we have it January is because there's transmission requests that we had. I didn't really talk about that, but 2 times a year you can put in transmission requests. So we would have to put in transmission requests. You can move a couple things around. You're part of our full requirement cities, so we would have to move you to MP3. It's about I think it's a $1,500 one-time request, I think, to make that request. And then once we got it moved over, then you can commence that June 1. The windows for these close on November 30th or May 31st. So we could technically let it leak into 2022, but then if we get the results back from the May study that are favorable, or we're not anticipating anything, but if something were to happen, then it doesn't give us a lot of time to pivot. So the sooner the better, but there's really no urgency. We're just trying to find an avenue to relieve some expenses as soon as you can. So,
Understood. Does anyone have any other questions?
What was those dates again? November 30th and May 1st?
November 30th and May 31st. Those are when the access we can get some windows closed.
Any other questions? I'm sure Brandon will be getting with you personally.
Yeah, I will leave you a card, Brandon.
Awesome. Thank you.
We appreciate your time. Thank you both so very.
We'll stick around for this other piece.
Okay, great. Item number 11, discuss and consider Flint Hill State Park support letter. Commissioner Garris.
The governing body received today an email from Dave Jones, who is Dickinson County's representative for this area of the Hill Park Board. I completely agree with them, and we need to throw our support behind getting additional funding. And I think that we need to do that collectively as a governing body. I think we'll pull more weight than individual weight. So after reading the email from Mr. Jones, I started drafting the letter and I sent it off to Brandon earlier today for a quick review and requested it be sent out to you guys. If you don't mind, I'd like to read it so the audience can hear it and we can sort of discuss it.
Proceed.
It says, to whom it may concern, on behalf of the city of Harrington, Kansas, we are writing to enthusiastically support the grant request to complete the Flint Hills Trail. This project is important to us because we realize it not only improves quality of life for our entire community, for our tourism opportunities. The city of Harrington is the westernmost terminal of the Flint Hills Trail and ends adjacent to our largest city park and the western end of our city's commercial district. Not far from this point, west of Harrington Lake and Harrington Reservoir, which only adds to the destination opportunities the trail gives and provides additional outdoor recreation for visitors who will utilize this trail. Local residents, along with visitors, have expressed their desire and want to utilize the trail for recreational and outdoor exercise. In addition to these outdoor enthusiasts, other local entities, such as the Harrington Unified School District, the Discovery Child Care Learning Center, and the Our Redeemer Evangelical Lutheran Church Preschool, along with other in-home daycares that have the opportunity to utilize the trail for educational and enrichment purposes as well. Recently, due to the lack of funding to continue this project, those entities, along with the residents of the state of Kansas, have not been able to utilize the entire trail and fully realize its possibilities. The city of Harrington has previously begun work to develop a trailhead proposal that would become a focal point for anyone wanting to begin or end their adventures along the trail. While the section of the trail that formally connects Harrington to the rest of the trail currently sits in phase 4 of the planning stages, we are positive that one day we will see the entire Flint Hills Trail State Park, the 7th largest rail trail in the nation, be a destination for outdoor enthusiasts and educators, not only locally and statewide, but nationwide. We are also supportive of this project as we believe the tourism opportunities for the state of Kansas to be growing and thriving due to the investments in trails. It is not only a vital amenity for our community and residents of our city and state, but also from economic development opportunities it will enable. As increased use in the trail is further recognized, more businesses will sprout wishing to add their flair to the opportunities available. Restaurants, lodging, apparel stores, and equipment businesses will begin to sprout up as the trails continually develop. This will not only increase utilization of the trail and highlight the state's commitment to tourism, but will offer more employment opportunities and increased revenue, not only locally, but statewide, as people travel from across the state and from across the nation on their way to enjoy this opportunity. Our community plans to continue working toward the completion of the trail and the presentation of the Western Trailhead that will be the starting and end point for all who utilize its vast opportunities both locally and regionally. We, the governing body of the city of Harrington, Kansas, strongly urge completion of the trail in the shortest time frame possible. Sincerely signed by all 5 commissioners. And I would ask that we support that letter and all 5 unanimously approve that letter to be sent to boost not only, as that letter states, the tourism and the educational opportunities for the city and a better quality of life for the city.
I would move to sign the letter to the Flint Hills State Park in support of the trailhead here.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue? Aye. Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman? Aye. Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bunting?
Aye. Item number 12 is discuss and consider the fire protection mutual aid contract with Marion County. This is an annual, I believe it's an annual contract review, and we have mutual aid with a couple of other agencies, I believe. Do you happen to have a copy of the I think we need to read something off of it to do the approval here.
Are we always done with Marion?
I don't think so. I think this is.
I think this is new. Leo brought this to our attention. I believe that's a newer one for Marion. Yeah,
For Marion, this is a brand new mutual aid.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't passed it Marion yet. Yeah.
Okay. So, do I need to read the whole thing? All right.
Enough to identify.
Okay. So agreement for mutual aid and fire protection Well, this agreement was entered into, July 13th, 2020, between the Harrington Fire Department, DK 202 and Marion Fire Department, MN 203. So we'll need to change the date, I'm assuming, on this because this document is dated.
You're taking action on it now. I assume it's something in place to that.
Okay,
Yeah, this just brought to my
Change the
attention.
date.
just change the date, okay. Whereas there might arise in one of the said fire department's area a fire disaster or an emergency of such proportion as to require the assistance of the other in fighting said fire or handling said emergency or disaster. And it's, whereas it's necessary to enter into a written contract for such services to protect members of said fire departments in the matter of pensions, personal injuries, and insurance services.
Okay.
So I would move to enter into an agreement for mutual aid fire protection with Marion County.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman? Aye. Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Aye. Okay, item number 13, discussion and action if needed on the city solar policy. I forgot the date that we addressed this previously, but it's been a number of months ago that we had the final draft of the document prepared. It was basically provided to us by KMU. So we just needed to make it specific to Harrington and add a few details in there. And at the time we were going to approve it, it was requested that we do a rate study. So we've been a number of months working towards that, but I believe when you were here last, we decided that because of opportunity for changes, that maybe we should forego the rate study today, sign the solar agreement, and then we can continue with the rate study in the future. So Brad has presented the
The one that
document.
I forwarded out to you looks, well, a few minor changes to it in terms of the dating and all of that sort of thing, but is dated as of today. And then the supplemental policies that were also provided through KMEA were attached to it as well for us for support purposes of how the system works and the process that we go through.
David, you got any concerns?
We do have a resident that is still waiting on this to be finalized, and I believe it was brought to us early in the year, February. Thank you.
Brad, without having to try to find it in the memo, do you remember off the top of your head how much, without having that rate schedule, how much additional solar customer would have to pay?
I should be good enough to do that, but no, I don't remember. It's been a while since I looked at that.
It's just a solar policy. It's not necessarily an ordinance that would correct. We're just approving a policy.
Ordinance contemplating the potential for use of solar energy was previously passed.
So this is just, if we make a motion to accept the city solar policy, that's all we need to do.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion, we accept the city solar policy as written.
I'll second. Any discussion? Nancy?
Yep.
Eric?
No.
Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue?
No.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Aye. All right, thank you, everyone. We appreciate your help and
We'll be in
expertise.
touch.
Thank
We'll
you
be in
so
touch.
much. Okay. Item number 14, discussion and action if needed on annexation progress.
Also forwarded to you, I went back through that. I also gave you in the memorandum a summary of the process that we go through with this one. You'll recall basically this is contiguous right of way with Highway 77. And where we ran into an issue, this is a year ago basically, we had gotten approval, approached the county commission, I approached the state, KDOT, and got approval from all of them. There was no opposition to our doing this. We went ahead and passed the resolution, Marcus, June, I think, right? 922 is the resolution number. That is
618.
and I had set a hearing date for September 3rd. That hearing turned out not to be required given the type of annexation this was under 12520. So we went ahead on August the 6th and did a approval subject to staff review. And that was simply to add the ordinance number and make sure that the legal was absolutely correct and attach a color rendition of the map, all of which you have in that memorandum. As I prepared it at that time, the last notation I had is that at that point, Matt was going to go and procure the signature, file it of record. That has not occurred. So we can, the basic ability to simply sign and file it, I suppose, exists. But as I was talking with the mayor today briefly, that was at the time we got a different mayor. I've never had one a year out that we then execute a year later. It would be my preference to take that ordinance and go ahead and approve it formally. You don't have to do it today if you want to be sure and look at it. Just make sure that you don't have any questions of anything. It took me a little bit, and thankfully Marcus found out August 6th one, because I had it in my notes that we approved it, and I thought September 3rd, date that I asked him to get for me, had nothing. Well, I know I didn't read this, so we had done it earlier.
So everything, the legals are in there now. That
Oh,
was
yeah.
talking about filing it, so we could just, there's really nothing we should change.
No, the only thing we would do is ultimately a new motion if we wanted to do it that way, so that you have the current mayor signing it. It doesn't look quite as inconsistent.
And
Why
we
did we
can,
let that thing sit for you?
and we can actually file it with the county.
Yeah.
That's what
And that's what's required.
we
We
need.
publish,
Mhm.
one time. And then, in this one, I'm gonna ask, we probably publish the full ordinance and not a summary, even though I'd be tempted to do that, because there's a 2-page legal. But I think under the circumstances, given that I'd like that full legal to appear in the paper.
We also had received a letter from Rita and James Hay. And I previously informed the commission that I tried to contact them. Since then, they've actually contacted me back. They are a lot more clear that they are not being annexed, and they appreciated the.
And that was the purpose of that map. It just makes it a lot easier for people to visualize and see exactly what we did. It's fairly small, again, we can blow that thing up, but I submitted that one. Should have come through on the memorandum, but the attachment in color to make it easy for everyone to see. That's all we took in.
So do we have to have a new resolution number or just?
Yep.
No, either unless we back up that far, we did that resolution saying that we were intending to do so, and that it was for hearing on a specific day. We did not need that hearing. So we went ahead and approved the ordinance about a month early, because we didn't have to wait. That was done August 6th of last year.
So we just
Excuse me.
need to change the mayor's name, have a new signature on the same
And a
ordinance.
signed ordinance number.
So I would move to approve the annexation of Highway 77, the resolution, the next sequential order,
It'd be the ordinance.
ordinance.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
So you said 77, there's no 56 on it too?
There's a short bit of 56 is on that.
But if we say no ordinance, we're still good.
Yeah, if you look at the map, that's the easiest way to visualize it. You look at that legal, it'll make you go cross that, because it just goes on and on and on.
I'll just make sure we cover everything.
Yeah.
So,
Takes the right of way in that short bit all the way up to county line. So we're basically just on the county line side.
So, does that mean we have to clear as a city, like snow and ice?
No. No, the fact that it's within the jurisdictional limits of the city under Kansas law does not change the fact that it's still considered Kansas highway. We just have jurisdictional rights, as the chief had presented at the outset on this, if we want to write tickets on it, that sort of thing. Jurisdictionally, we have that capability and some ability with petitioning the state to make some limited changes in terms of they have to approve as well. And they made that very clear to me when they said they didn't oppose us taking it in for this purpose as a jurisdictional part of the city. Signage, like stop signs or any other speed zone signs or reduced speed, that kind of thing, they still have a right because it's along the state right of way.
What about power, light, water, sewage?
There's an easement along there that is utilizable by public entities like us.
Uh,
So yeah, we have that ability.
So there was already easement in place.
Should probably let you know that KDOT's already moved soon.
Yeah, and because they thought, as the rest of us did, for quite a while, that had already been filed.
And so just to be clear on the next steps, we will, get this drawn up, I will sign it. Staff will, publish the entire thing in the newspaper, and as soon as that is done,
Then it's filed record.
it will be filed with the county. So that's the part that missed.
So that fits the census.
Yes, then we can proceed on with the census
Yes.
maps that were out of whack, so. Okay, so we had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garris?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman? Aye. Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Aye. Discussion and action if needed on the city lake ordinance progress. At the Brad sent us out.
This is one you've seen previously, and if you'll recall, we made all those changes and to make it a little easy to track. I went ahead and color coded those, yellow and red, et cetera, so you could tell what we had done. And then I know that Commissioner Donahue wanted to look at that again and had some concerns on several things. That's the last note I have, is that it was done as far as I know based on the instructions given, and everything was ready for passage and approval and publication, subject to a final review by everyone.
So
So-
basically brought up to the state standards, like the state park.
So,
So my questions were, so the state and Core Lakes, they opened January 1 for reservations. And I didn't notice, I read through it, I didn't see anything about it.
About that specific date, I don't think there is. I mean, we did certainly,
on the reservation software, it can be
which you
January 1,
adopt.
which we will
Yes,
adopt
so,
once we get
yeah.
to that point.
But if we could certainly.
And then the other one, all the state lakes I went to, Canopolis, Milford, Tuttle, all those have reserved and non-reservable slots, and it didn't say anything in there on that piece of it. And it's usually about 60-40 split. And like key spots are usually saved for non-reservable, is what I was seeing on what I looked into. So
And I have a question, I've asked numerous people to try to get, help me understand about that thought process. So, every spot that's at the lake is actually first come, first serve.
Mhm.
If it has a vehicle in that spot, it's not available. If it has a reserved sign on it, it's not available. But if you go to the next one, there's no sign, there's no one sitting there, it's a first come, first serve. So, by eliminating anything off of the software, that could eliminate a potential traveler from taking that spot if they,
so
rather than driving an hour and a half and find out, oh, there's nothing here.
but then you also get the right, I'll say this. It works at state lakes. I mean, if the state's doing it, I don't understand why it's clearly marked non-reservable, first come, first served in those spots.
I don't know if like the state lakes, we're limited to a number of campers. I don't know if they have overabundance in the lakes area. I don't know why they did that.
The software should easily be available to block those out.
It is, the software is capable of doing anything we want it to do. It's up to the majority to determine how we want that in the software.
Is the reservations, is that currently part of this ordinance? That we have to have this discussion
Well-
and decide?
No, I mean, it contemplates reservations, but we have not, the whole intent was to have that software and utilize, and if you approve or disapprove that and how you're gonna set up, as I understand it, in that.
And that's a completely different
It is.
conversation
Yes,
than
it
the
is.
lake ordinance as a
Right.
So most of it's just bringing the upgrade to
Combine
To
them into
combine
one.
them.
combine them into one and then bring that to like
Oh, it's,
the state guidelines that we use. The reservations, we can tweak that whenever we want.
So,
We ain't even got the software in place yet.
so we can still have that discussion on reservations, non-approved or non-reservable spots and whatnot when we get to that point.
and candidly, that's why it's silent in the ordinance, in terms of, you have the ability to set that policy whenever you want. If you
Okay.
want it to be codified in here, we can. It just makes it, you have to amend to get it out of there and change it in the future. Where right now you have greater flexibility to set as a policy matter and then have all of your software programmed accordingly.
And some of the questions on the criteria on the software involve some of the details here.
Okay.
And I'm not opposed to having a conversation on that later on, but my concern is section 6-149 deals with the Lake Advisory Board. First, it says it's disbanded in 2019, which I remember we did. But then it goes in and sets that all out. And it disbands another board. I'm just confused. Is it disbanded? Is it not disbanded?
Suspended, left the general guidelines, if you ever want to go ahead and reenact it, or if you want to wipe that out completely, we can do that in a matter of seconds. So that was left there, and there was some discussion at one point, very briefly, about that, so I left what those guidelines were in case you ever want one, but you don't have to have that in there at all.
I just think it would be almost clear that if we're not gonna have that in there right now, it's not gonna be part of this
Yes, you
discussion.
can certainly take it out.
Reserve it for later, or however, what legalese need.
Mhm.
That would be my concern. Other than that, I'm fine with that.
So if I make a motion to accept the lake ordinance,
Subject to, and you can simply specify that, subject to deletion of those provisions, we'll just take it out.
Such redaction.
I'll make a motion, we accept the lake ordinance, but amend section 6-149 Lake Advisory Board. Remove it.
Second. Any discussion?
And like I said, Vance, we can come back on all your
So
issues with-
on that being said, this is something that I think needs to be noted and that you need to think about when we go on the reservation side of it. We have 50 and 30 volt amps out there and 120 volt hookups. And they're set up like they're two different, I'll say it, like a 50 and then there's a 120. Nobody hooks up the 120 anymore. That's something you need to keep in mind.
I did when we
Okay.
presented the map, when I did the map,
Okay.
I didn't include the 120s.
And David, you are upgrading, we got some upgrades coming.
The 120 that's a requirement. National Electrical, you have to have that on the pedestal.
But it should probably, when we're making reservation, it should go to
The 30
30 or 50.
The 30 is the same as the 120.
Okay,
It's only 120 volt outlet. It's just in a camper plug instead of a regular reset.
okay,
It's the only difference. The 50 is 240.
okay,
And so on the reservation software data that they requested, it was only listed as one spot,
okay,
not two.
okay.
Okay,
That's been an issue.
but yeah, I've been there on that one.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
The motion, did it include approving the ordinance in the next sequential order? Because I don't know what ordinance.
I would-
We'll do it like that, but I believe
I
it will end up being one case in 27, but
I just
we'll do it next sequential order.
wanted clarification.
Yes, I did,
Okay, any further discussion?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell? Aye. Mayor Bonner?
Aye. Discussion of the Logan Point HOA. Brandon just received a copy of that today. I know that the rest of us have had a chance to glance at it. Brad sent us today what was discussed 2 or 3 years ago or more.
Looks like the last time we really had active conversations about it, and when the city HOA was actively having discussions about this was 2017. We did finalize some revisions to it then. Subsequently, there were additional meetings, according to my notes, involving potentially taking even greater elements of it and removing them. I don't have the point by point notes on that and didn't take them because Brenda was taking them at the time. I contacted her. She is fairly certain that those notes were preserved and should be in the Logan Point file in the clerk's office is what she responded with. I don't know if we can find them or not. If we can, great. If not, so be it. But I know that she did keep fairly extensive notes on every point made. And then I thought Dave did too, because he was just happy to do that. So I got a hold of him or emailed him and texted him as well. Haven't heard back from him yet today to see what he has, to see if we can recreate some of that discussion if you want to use that as another point of reference.
Yep.
But what I put in your memorandum was the most recent formalized version that I had finished. And that did have some changes to it. And whether that's different than the one that was filed, can't answer that.
Well, oh, the one that was filed was
You're
really,
talking about the original.
the original. That's all that's on file.
This one, in the one I sent you encompasses some significant changes, reductions of requirements that they wanted to see. And then once that was all done, then there was another discussion about, you know what, we gotta take more stuff out. And that's kind of where it stopped.
I would move to table this discussion until the next
Everybody has a chance to.
regular
read all that.
meeting to give everyone a chance to review the one that's on file with the county and then review what our predecessors had proposed. Give Brandon an opportunity to get familiar with all of that, so.
You can change 1,000 different options if you want to on. So,
Yeah, they're completely formidable, in terms of how you want to do them. The whole process can go from beginning to end and be changed.
I think the original one restrict a lot of stuff. We want
It
people
was
to
a
build
standard set I've seen, and I've drawn them in a number of different developments, and it wasn't terribly unusual. But again, they're drawn because the developer files them a record to protect the development. They can change them anytime they want up until the point where 50% typically of the lots are sold. Then the homeowners out there are eligible to create an HOA. We own enough of the property out there to be able to, in essence, create the HOA, which is what they were doing at the time. And then feeling like there was a significant amount of opposition to having quite so much control for regulations. So they wiped out a lot of things like a certain percentage of masonry, having so and so many trees in the front yard, a sprinkler system on every lot. Those kinds of things. And there were a lot of those elements that were removed, and there were still things that were being discussed at the point where we had finished drawing those, and then it just kind of stopped. Why, I don't even remember.
Did you make a motion?
I move to
Okay.
table it.
So,
Any other discussion?
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonner?
do we have to actually motion that or
No.
just table it?
You can just table
Just
it.
table
You
it.
can announce it as a table. It's not a bad thing to do it that way, because then if you ever go back like we did for the minutes on annexation, you have some idea what was done and when and have a chronology.
Okay.
And from my perspective, I've got a predisposition to have you do it if you're willing. Because this is a lot easier to look up later on.
all the research that we've been doing recently.
yeah.
Whatever makes it easier, so, yeah.
If you've got two people taking notes, it's really handy, keeps them busy.
Okay, item number 17, discussion of the city cement policy. Everyone received a copy of it in your packet, I believe. This was developed in 2009. And we do have a citizen request that has to do with a blight issue that on Broadway. So I wanted to make sure that everyone was familiar. The citizen reached out to me personally, so I've gathered details from all parties involved. But at least now we have in front of us the requirements for a citizen request going forward.
Does, the utility, does Leo grant that? We don't have to do everything.
I think it's.
He said he's done it in the past. He said
I
that,
think it runs with permit.
yeah, he said the citizen just gets with him and he measures it and calls in for the cement and things like that. I suggested that maybe we have an application process so that we could track who has requested, how much we've actually spent in that area. It sounds like it hasn't been utilized much, but I'm assuming that with this promotion and advertisement that more will take advantage. And in this particular program, it says that we'll make up to $10,000 available. And this program says that we will reimburse the citizen. So it might be that we want to adjust this, but I do feel that we need to track those requests and the actuals.
Eric, do you know how much concrete you're looking for that you?
I absolutely have no clue. And I assume you're talking over at
The
the
sidewalks.
sidewalk over the child care center? I've got no clue. That bill went.
I mean, $10,000, you can get a lot of concrete.
My concern is I don't remember if this was specifically stated anywhere in the budget either. Because something that,
It's something that oftentimes you develop it as a formalized program with the shared cost and that kind of thing on those kinds of elements of it. Some specificity on what the basic requirements of the city are for any replacement.
Does it, I don't know, maybe Marcus or them, does it come out of the street repair? So it's out of their general fund, they allow $10,000 to go to concrete. I think they set that up, years ago.
I'm just wondering if we shouldn't start making sure it's a separate line item that we always replenish the 10,000 a year.
With the program, the recurring program, I think we're gonna have a win. So,
And I don't know if Leo's a part of it, just puts it in his budget now, but it doesn't matter.
I'm sure it's calculated in the budget. We know we have it. It's just a matter of
transparency.
transparency for everybody else.
Does it discuss the grade of concrete they're supposed to use? It does.
They're supposed to use 3,500 pounds concrete, and it has to be at least 4 inches or 4 foot wide, at least 4 inches wide, or 4 inches deep for side blocks, 6 for tractor road.
And there's one for, said 4,000 in there somewhere, didn't it? That's what I seen.
The only numbers I was
I
seeing.
see 35.
3,500, you might need 4 inches of 35. And I can't find 4.
It's just 4 inches, 3,500 concrete. You get 6 inches. New joints pinned by 3/8 steel rod to existing concrete to reduce separation.
And this, just to clarify, this program is for the product only. The citizen is responsible for the labor, getting it formed and everything else.
I guess I read it.
I'd agree though, that we probably need to amend it where it's just not a reimbursement, it's a straight bill to the city for concrete.
Part of that is the city, when Leo orders the concrete, he measures it, orders it. The city gets a discount by buying the concrete, and then that way, if the customer did it, it would cost more.
Then we also let them go ahead and do that inspection on the forms and what they put out there.
Yeah, before they pour it, to make sure everything's.
I've personally used it for my own home before, and Leo doesn't just give it away. I can almost guarantee that.
But on the case of this blight issue, you almost like, you're going out of the way to change the sidewalk to what's in the tree. So,
Go ahead,
One
David.
more question on that. You move the sidewalk around the tree in another 5, 6, 7 years, it's gonna be over that sidewalk, where you're gonna be in the same boat.
Yeah, it doesn't really specify, you know, if we make accommodations for landscaping
Typically, you
requests.
do not.
But we have in the past made that accommodation. So
For the
we
free
can learn from the
cement.
past, we can,
I don't,
You
it
actually can.
wasn't necessarily for free cement at the time, but we have made the exemption for city sidewalk. They haven't all been straight.
Oh, correct, and that's what we did in this situation. We allowed an exception for the citizen to alter the path of the sidewalk. But that at that time, there was no discussion that the city would provide the cement for it. But that's the question that has,
There isn't.
and that's the purpose of reviewing this policy so that,
In my opinion, if the city's gonna pay for concrete and it's a city sidewalk, I don't care if it's rounded, straight, whatever it is. Everybody should be treated equally to get that.
well, and I agree to a point, but this is a tree that's gonna keep going farther and farther out, so,
There's ordinances that require them to maintain that tree.
and that's why you got written letter to maintain the tree.
But what I'm just addressing is we shouldn't have to demand that their sidewalk is straight, regardless of if we're giving them the concrete or not. That's just my opinion.
I didn't believe that we were requiring them to have a straight sidewalk. We allowed the exception so that they could curve their new walk path around the tree. Nothing in there or in the conversation said anything about a straight sidewalk, just a walk path that allows for the tree. The question today has nothing to do with that exception. The question today is about, is that where we would provide free concrete for that?
I would say no, because there's nothing wrong with that sidewalk other than their tree. Nothing in here is wrong with their sidewalk. So if they want to keep their tree beautiful, and they want the sidewalk under, they should have to pay for the concrete. Nothing wrong with that sidewalk other than their trees overseeing the sidewalk. We should not be giving them free concrete.
So is that a city manager decision? Or us, man?
I don't think it's
In my experience with the city of San Antonio, you know, granted it is a bigger city, code would, any kind of issues with the right of way, the sidewalk, property owner would be paid for completely out of their own pocket. So this is a generous program, but I also noticed, there's no limitations there's no, reoccurrence limitation in the program, so there's something we may wanna look at, because they can come to us, legally, they can come to us every year or two and ask us for $10,000. It's not all money, it's not stated in the program, so this is something that we need to revise. I think we should pick that up, just my opinion.
So there's already a sidewalk in place.
Mhm.
So why are we adding to a sidewalk that's already working?
Because their tree is
And
over
they
the
need
sidewalk.
Then
They don't want to trim the tree, they want to move the sidewalk around the tree.
They have to
If
trim.
they want to move it, we gave them permission to do that. So if they
It
want
was-
to do that, they should have to pay for concrete.
It was a special exception because it is a beautiful tree. It's on, you know, a
It doesn't-
main
Is this the one
thoroughfare.
on the 200 block that I run into every day? I run
Yep.
down the
Yep.
street?
So-
Okay, yeah, it needs to trim the
So
street.
lesson learned that, okay, maybe we should not have made that exception, but we did. And so, now he's received a blight letter that says, you haven't fixed the sidewalk. Well, now we're here, that's coming soon. I've had numerous conversations that he is wanting, and that was his reason, that he hadn't fixed it yet because he was waiting on the free cement for the sidewalk repair, so.
Which, and I'm not for service, don't think that's necessary giving $300
Yeah,
for the tree.
I was under the impression that Leo had to approve that anyway, so I thought we already had it as policy for Leo to approve.
That's why I asked if it was a
I
city
was-
manager policy or else.
I was more, my statement is more in the future.
So like Brandon said, you might want to review this policy.
Revise it.
I'm gonna take a look at this, because I just think there's no limitations on that. And maybe we can tie in the tree ordinance or an ordinance that,
Well, there's
similar,
there's code violation,
Yeah.
that's a problem, so.
but yeah, it's just looking at somebody to fix their code violation. I'll take a look at this and I'll try to work something out for this.
It's already a good sidewalk there that we paid for.
So we look forward to the revision that you propose for that, but just so our staff will know, guidance there too. All right, anything else on that? Okay. Discussion of the city's policy on payment of utility bills after it's been placed on the shut-off list.
There's probably more me. So, the staff, so what happens, someone doesn't pay their bill, they get put on the shut-off list. What then happens is in order to get their electricity, their utilities back on, they have to pay not only what was by this 7406, not only do they have to pay what was late, but now they also have to pay, because the new bill has come out, what is current. So since it says due on receipt, the new bill is current, so you end up having to pay two bills at once. Yes, plus the reconnect fee. So just in experience here, the staff's that kind of puts people that are already hurting, kind of a little bit of a disadvantage. Like, oh, I've got a $400 bill I can't pay. Now it's jumped to $800.
So, but they know it's late. Do they come in and work with you?
No,
So it's not our fault.
that part's not our fault. Our only proposal for suggestion would be not to pay the current bill. So what they would pay is what's late plus the reconnect fee, and then the current bill would be, they would still have that regular time period
So
that everybody else
do you
has.
want to do that every month with the same person every time?
Well,
But I mean, you're not gaining anything, you're just, I know they're hurting, but if they would have come in and worked with you ahead of time, we make arrangements the whole time for payment. If they wait till the last minute and don't do it, and you give them plenty notice, shut off, to get it back on, you got to pay your bill. If not, they're gonna do it every year or every month, and you'll be in the same spot every month doing it. So, I've done, what I tell people, it's due on receipt. You know when it's due, it's late after the 25th, but it's due now. It's not our, you can't control the money. If they need help, they usually come in, and the clerks and the city manager work with them on a payment plan or something for that.
If they come in
Before it gets to that point, you give them plenty of notice that it's coming. You don't warn them. You warn them, I don't know how many times. You're just gonna, it'd just be a constant battle.
How much grace period do they get?
Technically,
There's
25
So
days.
almost a month.
And so a bill gets ran first, second, third of the month, depending on how the calendar falls, that gets mailed out. You have until the 25th of the month to pay that bill, and then a 10% penalty if you don't pay it then.
So
Then you get shut off on first or second, then
how do I explain this? So if it gets billed out the first, second, third, gets mailed out, what happens when they get their bill after the 15th? They paid everything else out. Let's say people live bill to bill from, they get paid on the 1st and 15th, and now they don't have anything now, and they owe on the 25th, and they have nothing left.
They actually owe when they get the bill.
Correct.
So it goes monthly, you know that you should theoretically budget for utility bills gonna come out every year. I know people run short and stuff, but I know the city staff will work with somebody if they come in. He's talking about people that don't even come in,
They're
you
just-
shut them off.
Okay.
Would you consider doing a one-time, forgiveness, on that? So I know, so for example, they get turned off. And so they come in and they can pay what's due plus their reconnect fee. If we allow those individuals to do that one time, similar to what we put in place with the COVID, forgiveness and the payment plan, would that be something that you might consider?
Not really, because if they would have came in, if you come in and say, hey, I'm not gonna make my payment today, the city will work with you. It's when they don't come in, I'm not gonna reward them for not coming in, at least trying to work something out.
Historically, the city hasn't had the greatest in the past customer service on that aspect. And there has been a lot of complaints historically on that specific aspect. And the city won't work with you if you come in and say, I can't pay the bill. Whether that's true or not, or whether that actually happened, or if it didn't, is neither here nor there. We've said multiple times that we value customer service with the city over anything. I'm not opposed to changing this up, the wording up, even slightly. My biggest concern is that they come in, they pay the bill, they pay their $75 reconnect fee, and they gotta wait another 24 hours to turn it back on.
I have a problem with that myself. I
They
wish
should
it
be
wasn't.
turned back on the same day if they pay that fee. We have, I know you guys are busy, David, but
That leaves the guy doing basically nothing until he gets the call, because he knows he's gonna get it. It's kind of hard to be doing
And it's
something.
usually gonna be at 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
and it's overtime. So, once again, they have ample notice that you're getting shut off. And I've battled, this has been a battle since we started doing utilities. Larry even knows when he was on, it's just a battle. So it's due on receipt. Make arrangements if you can't pay. I'm sure the city manager, city staff will work with you. It's when you don't come in, what gets you. I don't care, like, the reconnect fee. If you pay it, you have to wait 24 hours. That doesn't matter to me. If you have time to hook them up, that's fine. During regular working hours, yes.
But not on
Overtime, no. They're not calling after 5 and turning something on.
The only suggestion I'd say on that was that it'd have to be, if you're gonna get reconnected that day, it's gonna be, here's your times between 3 and 4, or 3 and 3:45 of that day. That's the only time we're gonna be doing that. Because like you said,
Or even if they haven't paid by noon, you can turn them on,
at 3 o'clock.
yeah, or something like that.
To have
That's the way
some-
that must, they have a time limit. Once past that time, you
Yeah, so we're not calling that person all day.
so regardless, we need to see some some ordinance, like.
If you could write something up, your actual proposal on how you would like that to read,
I'll talk with them. So
and
that
have Brandon's input on that so that we can actually consider it for action item.
like I said, these are just suggestions, but someone just had, they staff brought it up and thought, well,
It's good
bring it
discussion
to you
though.
guys too, so see what you think.
I can see him paying them $75 and their late payment, and then give them the rest of that, and you pay them the rest of the bill,
Not have
instead
to
of
pay
being able
one
to pay
time.
both all at one time.
That-
At least gives them
Yeah, it's
2
not
weeks
a
to
break.
finish paying.
Yeah, it's not a break on paying what's already been due.
If you guys make suggestions, I mean, you guys gotta deal with it. Just tell me what the history was. You'll have the same people.
If it works for you, it makes
We
you
got the
happy.
same people.
Yeah, I don't care how you do
It's the
it.
same people every month, no matter what, so
So,
Maybe, but since we're all,
generally.
since we're all doing that, the way the ordinance reads, we have to change the
Oh,
ordinance
yeah.
to comply with city policy.
and then if you wanna look at like, so do something like Atmos, right? If you pay it by a certain time, they'll turn you on that day. If you don't, cause think we should pay somebody overtime to turn you on.
Yeah, I would
Pay
agree.
overtime for
You come
somebody.
you come into the absolute last minute, pay your bill, that, see, is your fault. You come in where they have enough time to actually get in touch with David and staff, so they can go turn it back on before the end of the day, great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for that too. So something Brandon, if you guys can review and bring to us. Put it on your list.
We're just making a bigger point.
Oh, no, it's okay, I was gonna say something, but I think I'd rather work with Marcus first than bring it to the board.
Okay. Perfect, we look forward to that. All right, item number 19. Who put all these on here anyway? No,
It wasn't me. Wasn't me.
Ellie, out of one.
okay, yeah. Discuss and consider the contract with Mayor's Specialty Services LLC for the city sewer lines cleaning.
So it's a program they've done for I don't know how many years. They come in and clean a third of our sewers. Camera them, make sure everything's clean, and they rotate different things. Since they've done that, you hardly ever get any sewer falls out. Before that, you always got calls.
Is that part of the smoke test that they're gonna do as well?
Some years they smoke test to see if there's any.
I think they're gonna do that this year,
So,
seems like.
so that they've been doing it for, I don't know how many years, 10, 15 years. They do a third of the town. It's budgeted in. So, is there an amount on the contract? It might be a,
Last page. And it shows.
Brad, do we need to have an amount if we just recommend the contract?
Approve the contract as presented, you're fine with that?
Yeah.
This one also is standard, we've been doing this for, I forget how many years.
It looks like page
I
3
looked at it.
does give amounts. 2021 would be $17,809.92. 2022 would be $24,587.55. 2023 would be $29,163.42, if I read this correctly.
It's a good program that's been working fairly well for our community. And then they can find out the bad spots of the sewer lines and then they repair them and get them going.
Compared to what the contract is right now, we're just doing it for
Yes.
3 years.
Yeah.
So I would move to approve the contract with Mayor Specialty Services for the city sewer lines cleaning.
I'll second it.
I moved approval of the contract.
You need to restate the motion.
I was writing.
Okay, so we're on item 19. And I move to approve the contract with Mayor Specialty Services LLC for city sewer lines cleaning.
I will second it.
Okay. Any discussion? It's late.
Yeah. All right. Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Bonnie?
Fine. Item number 20, I move the city commission recess into executive session to protect the privacy rights of persons being discussed pursuant to non-elected personnel matters exception KSA 754319B1. The open meeting will resume at, I think, 30 minutes. Huh?
People think they're.
Well, you want to start with 15? I don't,
It always takes
30? All right, 6:53. So what time are we gonna be at? 7:15? What? 27:23. To include the governing body, city attorney, city manager, and we want city clerks. No, not at this time. Okay. That was my motion. Marcus.
Commissioner Donahue?
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Bell?
Aye.
Mayor Vaughn?
Aye. I forgot to mention this.
Just any time when you like, and then it's gonna be
Close to half hour.
Yes.
the departments that are leading the insanity.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Good.
It's 7:23. The regular meeting will resume with no action taken. I would move to amend the agenda to add item 20A, the spending authority for the city manager.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay,
We may
Mark,
say the number.
20. Oh, yeah, when I get to that. Okay, Marcus.
Commissioner Donahue,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
I'm sorry.
Amending
Amending the agenda.
Amending the agenda? Aye.
Commissioner Hartman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Mayor Bonnet.
Aye. Okay, so number 20A, I move to approve the spending authority for the city manager to $10,000 per per issue,
For projects.
project, yeah, per project. Okay. Do I need to repeat that?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Do we need to notify that we've dropped the city?
He does.
No, he does that.
Just want to make sure that
That was
I understand what we're going.
Okay, any other discussion on approving the spending authority, maximum of 10,000 per project for the city manager?
My question was not about that pay issue. My question was about whether the city clerk still remained at 10,000 or if he dropped it. That's,
He gets dropped down because now I would be,
he dropped down.
And I think when we made the motion previously to allow that, it was destroying his,
Yeah, as soon as we got city manager, it dropped it.
I just want to.
any other discussion? Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue,
Aye.
Commissioner Garrett,
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman.
Aye.
Commissioner Bell.
Aye.
Mayor Bonnet.
Aye. City manager and city commissioner comments. So in the absence of a city manager, I've asked, Brad if he had any legal matters or, that we should be aware of, or to the public that we're working on, so,
Nothing other than what we covered today.
okay. All right. Brandon, do you have anything that you'd like to add at the end of our meeting?
no, I think everything's moving pretty swiftly. We had a good late conversation this morning, Lake Harrington. We're getting pretty aggressive on it. We initiated a meeting with Brad at the county and Chuck Scott at the end of the next 2 weeks to kind of get a big brainstorming session going on. So I think we're going to be moving pretty swiftly with the Lake Harrington issue. So we'll be pretty excited about that.
You? Vance?
Just like to welcome Brandon to the community and, commission meeting number 1 complete with the city manager finally for me. So, thank you.
Oh, that's correct. You haven't experienced that yet.
Ah, congratulations.
Yay! You graduated here. All right. Okay, Eric.
Brandon, thanks for coming on board. We've already got a big list of what you got from us and several others. I'm sure Marcus handed you a bunch of things. So good luck with that. Thanks for being here. We look forward to working with you. I just want to give everybody else in the commission a heads up that the first meeting of November, I'd like to see the vacant building ordinance back on the agenda. For discussion. Yeah, first meeting in November. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
I'm just gonna tell Brandon, welcome aboard. Don't stress out, quit the first week. Because I'll quit right behind you. Anyways, welcome aboard. Look forward to working with you. So, thank you.
And Brandon, I do welcome you here. And also I want to thank the city staff and city for getting us by until we got a city manager. They did a lot of work keeping the city going, and I appreciate that.
Right.
And can you pay, oh, never mind.
Lunch, but no. Yes, welcome. We're very happy to have you here, and I'm anxious to see everyone keep up with how quickly you move. We're gonna make some progress. There is something that we need to think about in the lake reservation software. The data that I provided, I just gave maps of the old lake and the new lake. So the question is, how do we want to identify those? So I'm just putting it out there so that we can think about how do you want it out on the software system, old lake, new lake, or some other.
City lake, city reservoir,
So we can think about that and
city lakes and city reservoir. If you're like us, it's old lake, new lake, but it's, I think it's this,
is that what, if that's,
the exact title.
it's a city lake and then there's city reservoir.
okay, good enough. All right, good enough. All right, everyone, I appreciate everyone's help. Is there anything else for the good of the community?
I move to adjourn. Second.
Marcus?
Commissioner Donahue? Commissioner Garrett? Aye. Commissioner Hartman? Aye. Commissioner Bell? Mayor Mon?
Aye.
You're gonna have to speed up a little bit, Pastor Vince. Y'all are gonna have to speed up, that's my job. I was gonna let you tonight.
I got a guy that's telling me, he's chilling.
Yeah.
Taking out outside the city.